Hi everyone, this is Tani Rod from Gymrock Zone. I am just going to finish up part two of Truth Be Told. This is 2 Samuel between 16 and 19 when David returns to Jerusalem after the death of his son Absalom. And a lot of people who kind of sided with Absalom when David left were coming up and greeting the king and saying, hey, we're loyal to you now. We were here with your son because you stayed and you left, but you're the king now, etc. So one of the people who came up to greet him was Mephibosheth. Now remember, Mephibosheth was the last remnant. He was the last descendant of Saul. He was actually Jonathan's child, which is Saul. Jonathan was Saul's son. And Jonathan, of course, was the beloved friend of David. I mean, they were so close. And David was extremely saddened when he was killed in war. So Mephibosheth, remember, stayed according to Ziba, which was Mephibosheth's servant, appointed by David. Ziba came running up to David with some refreshments, saying that Mephibosheth had decided to stay behind and not go with David because Mephibosheth was kind of thinking about maybe, being reinstated as a king, because he was, of course, direct lineage of Saul. And so David was he was kind of perplexed about it. He was like, okay, well, as much as I spared his life and I invited him into my family, I don't understand why he would think that, but anyway, so David instructed Ziba to stay behind and to be kind of his I spy, his kind of, eyes and ears, and just to make sure that if there were any plans to attack David, that the Ziba would be able to inform David on time. So David is returning, and Mephibosheth comes up to him and kind of tears down everything that Ziba had said about him earlier. So in chapter 19, 24, it says, and Mephibosheth, the son of Saul, came down to meet the king. He had neither taken care of his feet, nor trimmed his beard, nor washed his clothes from the day the king departed until the day he came back into safety. As I said it before, I found it very strange that if he in fact was preparing himself to be reinstated as king, then all the time that David was out of Jerusalem, that he had not taken care of his body. He had not trimmed his beard. He had not taken care of his feet. And remember that, he was handicapped in his feet, right? And so he kind of was in mourning, he kind of was disheveled, right? So I was a little confused as to, how could this be somebody in preparation to be king? It didn't make sense to me. And David says, why did you not go with me, Mephibosheth? So David is straight up, he just goes straight in and he says, why didn't you come with me when I left Jerusalem running for my son? Why didn't you come with me? And Mephibosheth answered, my lord, O king, my servant deceived me. For your servant said to him, I will saddle a donkey for myself, and I may ride on it and go with the king. For your servant is lame. He has slandered your servant to my lord, the king. So here, Mephibosheth kind of paints a different story of what Ziba had said. Mephibosheth said, I was willing to go. And he said, no, why don't you stay behind? I'll go. You're going to slow us down because you're crippled. He wasn't going to walk. He was going to go on a donkey. I don't understand how that would have slowed anybody down, but Ziba kind of convinced, according to Mephibosheth, right? Ziba convinced Mephibosheth to stay behind and to not run after David. So who's telling the truth? Was Ziba saying the truth? Did he say the truth at the beginning when he said, hey, I'm here, but your dude is not here? Or is Mephibosheth saying the truth, coming up to David upon David's return to Jerusalem and saying, "Here, I'm here, and this servant lied and tricked me." So I find it interesting how David responded. He said, "And the king said to him, why speak any more of your affairs? I have decided, you and Ziba shall divide the land." And Mephibosheth said to the king, "Oh, let him take it all, since my lord the king has come safely home." I have to confess, I was a little mad when I read this, because I guess it's so easy, right, to read it and not be in the moment and make that decision. But I kind of felt that Ziba was the one who lied. I kind of felt that it was Ziba who maybe planned, we have enemies in our camp, man, we don't even know. Sometimes they don't even know that they are our enemies, that they do not have our best interest in heart, but they don't. We have people next to us talking in our ear. And whether it's intentional or not, they just don't have our best interest in heart. They don't give us that good advice. It's not godly. And sometimes, and oftentimes, not sometimes, I have learned this lesson this past year. And oftentimes, we need to keep our mouths shut. And it's not that we're keeping things in and not maybe sharing it with people, because there are some things that you want to share, right? There's some things that you would like a perspective from that's different from yours, and sometimes God does speak to us through others. Sometimes. But I kind of like the direct pipeline. I like the direct pipeline. I like it to be like I'm hearing from God directly. That's what I've been praying to God all year. Like, I want to hear from you directly. So when I read this, I thought it was kind of obvious that Ziba lied and Mephibosheth was telling the truth because he was disheveled. He had not been preparing himself to be king. And in fact, he said, "Listen, I'm not even worried about the land and all of the holdings that you gave me. He can keep it all. I'm just glad you're safe." I mean, in the book of Kings, as we read the story of Solomon, which is David's son by way of Bathsheba, he was confronted by two women who were fighting over a child. Two women had babies at the same time. They lived together, and one of the women's baby had died overnight. I guess when the women kind of rolled over the baby and the baby was dead. And so the woman of the dead baby replaced her dead baby with the other woman's live baby. And so the other woman the next day looked at the child and said, "Well, that's not my child." I mean, she looked at it, "This is not my baby." And so they went before Solomon, and Solomon said, "Well, okay, easy." They were both claiming that the child was theirs, each of them. And Solomon said, "Okay, let's go ahead and split the child in half, physically. Split the child in half. One mother takes one half, and the other mother takes the other half of the child, and then both of you have the child." And one of the women said, "No, no, 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 no. Don't do that. Give her the child. Just give her the child. Don't do that." And immediately Solomon knew that that was the true mother, right? Because a true mother is never selfish. A true mother is never selfish with her children, with her child. So she would have rather lived without her child, but for her child to be alive. And it reminds me here of that, even though this was Solomon, which was David's son, and David was nowhere around because David had, at that point, David had deceased, right? But I felt that it was obvious. I don't know. I feel that it's obvious that it was Mephibosheth who was not lying, and Ziba was kind of taking advantage of the situation. But at any rate, I guess the bigger story here is that we have to be concerned of the people that we have close to us, around us, talking in our ear. They could be people with good intentions or very bad intentions. There could be people who have no knowledge of God, or people who are really, walking their walk with God, and yet they're not telling us our story. The only person who can tell us our story is God, because He wrote it for us. He wrote it. He's the author. He's the author, right? Somewhere in the Bible it says He's the author and the finisher of our faith, but God is also the author and finisher of our lives. So He knows the story. So we go to Him for it, right? Do I go here? Do I go there? Do I take this job? Do I take that job? Do I move? Do I stay? Do I wait for Him? Do I not wait for Him? Am I praying for the right person? Am I praying the right thing? Am I not? Is this person my spouse? Is it not? Is it? I don't know. The only person who knows for sure and who can give us that answer, who can confirm that information, is God, because He wrote our story. Just, as a reminder, we just have to be careful and mindful whom we allow in our ears, because the enemy usually is silently slick. All right, family. Jem Rockstone. Talk to you soon. Bye.